Catching up on some shows before the end of the year, we've got Willow over on Disney+, some imports on some other streamers, and George and Tammy, about two country music legends. Let's talk TV. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to TV News and Reviews for the week. Getting ready to wrap up 2022, but we still have, I think, a few weeks left of TV News and Reviews before we can get into our best of the year. I fell a bit behind this year, I admit, but we've got some shows from the very end of November, beginning of December to talk about, including the much-anticipated Willow TV series, which is, of course, based on the film and actually a continuation of the film of the same name from the late 80s. We've also got George and Tammy, starring two Hollywood heavyweights as two country music legends. We've got a sci-fi program called 1899 on Netflix, and a few imports as well. Mammals, Mood, and Irreverent. We're going to talk about all of that as we continue on here, but of course, TV News and Reviews starts with the news. So we're going to start there and talk about some renewals and cancellations. Yellowjackets has been renewed for season 3 on Showtime, even months before season 2 has premiered. So obviously a big deal. I loved this show, and hopefully they can keep the momentum going. I know it's very buzzy, a lot of big faces in it, and some awards love as well. So excited to see that that is already on board for season 3, even before season 2 premieres in March. The Sex Lives of College Girls renewed for season 3 on HBO. That is exciting news. A show that was in my top, not sure it made my top 10 of 2021, but it was definitely up there. It was close if it didn't make the top 10. But that's on HBO Max. And then Quantum Leap renewed for a second season on NBC. This is the first freshman show from any network to garner a second season. So obviously they are excited about the results of that. And I think the first season returns in like a week or two. I know it took a few weeks off, but they'll be back at some point in, I think, early January with a whole series of new episodes. And then finally, Lego Masters renewed for season 4 on Fox. I admit I have not caught up with that since season 1, but it was very cool to see all the different creations that people were working on, and what people can do with Lego. So I think that's usually, a summer show, but this season I think it was on in the fall after The Masked Singer. So I don't know where they're going to put that for season 4, but it will be here. In terms of series endings, this one is sad. I think you can look forward to hearing about this one in my top 10 or 15 of this current year. But HBO has decided not to follow through on its renewal for season 2 of Minx. The season has been almost finished. It's in post-production right now. And much like Chad on TBS, which was, being promoted and everything, and then the day of the premiere, they said, we're not going to run this show. And that has been picked up since by, I forget now, Roku maybe? But in any event, Lionsgate owns the rights to Minx, and they're going to look for a new home for season 2. I loved season 1, and I was very excited about an upcoming season, but I guess it is not meant to be on HBO, at least. So, all right, moving over to announced shows. There is a God of War video game TV show. This is a hugely popular video game franchise, God of War. It's going to be on Amazon Prime Video. And I don't know when exactly, but the show Wheel of Time is sharing a showrunner with this program. Wheel of Time has gotten a lot of good buzz, so hopefully, if you're a fan of the game, this will be up your alley. Amazon has also given a 2-season initial order to Reese Witherspoon's All Stars. The show centers on a former cheerleader played by Witherspoon who cons her way across the Atlantic to teach cheerleading at a school in England. I have to admit, it sounds a bit Ted Lasso-y for me. Midwest guy moving across the pond to, coach soccer, in this case, teach cheerleading. Look, if you're going to rip off a concept, you do it from the best in the business. People love Ted Lasso. I love Ted Lasso. And I like Reese Witherspoon. So I love Reese Witherspoon. So we'll see. But just when I heard the concept, I thought, all right, that seems a little too on the nose for a Ted Lasso thing, but whatever. We've got The Never Game, based on the best-selling book, coming to CBS next fall with Justin Hartley as the lead. This will be his first regular series role since This Is Us ended. He stars as Coulter Shaw, who is a lone wolf survivalist roaming the country as a reward seeker, using his expert tracking skills, helping private citizens and law enforcement to solve all manner of mysteries while also contending with his own family. I like Justin Hartley. I haven't really seen him do much else other than This Is Us, but we'll see. CBS dramas usually run a long time, so it could be another big hit for him. And then finally, Hulu has landed the new Dan Levy animated adult comedy called Standing By, featuring voices including Levy himself, Glenn Close, and David Tennant. It's about the hilarity, embarrassment, and melodrama of everyday life as observed by a team of judgmental, gossip-starved guardian angels. So could be some humor there. I really have loved everything that Dan Levy has brought to the table. Schitt's Creek, of course, but also this new Big Brunch reality cooking show that just started a few weeks ago on, I think, HBO Max. I've been enjoying that, so we'll see. All right, in casting news, Hugh Grant is coming to the Kate Winslet miniseries The Palace on HBO. This show was announced a little while ago as a direct-to-series order, and it chronicles a year inside an authoritarian regime as it begins to unravel. Grant is going to have a guest role in the drama, not be a series regular, but other details we don't know yet. Matt Lucas is leaving the Great British Bake Off, if I can speak, as a judge after 3 seasons. He is leaving of his own accord. There's no, Me Too type charges or, harassment or anything like that. He has just decided after 3 seasons to find greener pastures. I have not seen much of this show, but I will admit, I think it was last Christmas, my sister-in-law and brother were watching it on Christmas Eve, and they marathoned like the final 3 episodes of whatever the season was. And he was good on it. I know him from Bridesmaids and a couple other TV shows and movies, but he was good as a judge. Jake Gyllenhaal is going to star in Apple Plus's Presumed Innocent TV show. Gyllenhaal is set to star as Rusty Sabek, who is a prosecutor whose world is upended when a close colleague is murdered, and the evidence seems to point to himself. And the role for him is going to be his first in an ongoing TV series. Comedy Central then has announced in other casting news that it has a lineup of guest hosts to MC The Daily Show when it returns January 17th from its long winter hiatus. To date, the group includes some potential replacements, including Chelsea Handler, Al Franklin, D.L. Hughley, Leslie Jones, John Leguizamo, Hassan Minhaj, Cal Penn, Sarah Silverman, Wanda Sykes, and Marlon Wayans, along with some current correspondents and contributors as well, like Roy Wood Jr. and Desi Lydic. Is somebody like, Sarah Silverman going to take over The Daily Show? Of course not. John Leguizamo? Of course not. But somebody like Chelsea Handler, maybe. Cal Penn, I could see it. I mean, he worked in Obama's White House. He has a very, very good political knowledge and background. So, some of these I could definitely see. Hassan Minhaj, was a contributor for a long time, and then he struck out on his own show. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that all works. All right, in some odds and ends news, we'll end here. Yellowstone marks the first appearance of Peacock on the streaming charts. Now, the streaming charts go about a month back, so this is going to be for like mid to late November. But with the new season starting on Paramount Plus, or Paramount Network, I guess, interest in the previous seasons of Yellowstone have been, big. And there's a whole rights issue thing. For whatever reason, Peacock has been granted the rights of the old seasons while the new stuff is on Paramount Plus, and the two have nothing to do with each other. But I guess in some sort of deal a while back, the repeats, went on Peacock. But anyway, it has a number 5 entry on the acquired series list, largely thanks to the new season. So that's pretty exciting. Miss Universe is going to stream on the Roku channel, the first time on a streamer, on January 14th. Fox had been the home for the last few years, and Telemundo will still air the Spanish version live. But Miss America ran on Peacock last year instead of a linear network, so just following suit with Miss Universe. And Hunters is finally returning for season 2, a second and final season on Amazon Prime. It finally has a release date, which will be in January, and season 1 aired February of 2020. So we're almost 2 full years after the first season. This is a show with Al Pacino and Logan Lerman, and I forget his name, but he played Ted on How I Met Your Mother, and many, many other people. I saw season 1. I think when I graded the first couple of episodes here on this show, it was pretty high then, maybe a B+ or an A-, and I ended up finishing this season, and I would say that is an accurate grade for the show. So I'm excited about a season 2. I think it's fine that it's the final season. It could have really been a miniseries. I don't know. I think it wrapped up enough of the storylines to be considered a miniseries if it needed to be. But I'm good with the season 2 as well. And then finally, we'll end on the Children and Family Emmys. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that it was going to be the very first Children and Family Emmys. So for preschool series, it went to Sesame Street. Children and Family Viewing was The Babysitter's Club. And for young teen series, it was Heartstopper on Netflix, which that one actually ended up winning a few awards, including some of the acting and some of the writing awards as well. So a lot of love for that one. And like I previously mentioned, LeVar Burton had gotten like the Lifetime Achievement Award for his work, obviously, in Reading Rainbow and, other family-friendly series along the way. So we love him. And I don't know, I look forward to, not that we need another, award show really, but I think it's fine to sort of separate some of that stuff, some of the children's programming that the adults don't really care about at the primetime Emmys. So, all right, let's move over to the reviews. We've got 6 new shows to talk about, and Willow has to be the first one. This premiered now almost a month ago, but, just getting to it here with the holidays and everything. So this is a direct sequel, I guess you would say, or a direct continuation of the 1988 film, which I saw in theaters back in the day, and I haven't seen it since, so I have to be honest, I don't remember too much about it, other than, Val Kilmer was in it, and Warwick Davis obviously played, the main character, Willow Oofgood. But this is, one of the first real fantasy things I had ever seen that wasn't strictly sci-fi, like a Star Trek or something. But, I didn't watch Star Wars until I was in college, and this was obviously before Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones and things that have been big lately. So this was kind of a surprise hit at the time. It was, kind of came and went at the box office, but it did pretty well and became a huge cult hit. People that enjoy this movie love it. And I think that is maybe reflected in the Rotten Tomatoes score disparity, because you've got the critics sort of on one end, and it's not a crazy high score, but it's in, I think, the high 60s or the low 70s. But then the audience score has it at a 25%. So obviously, people that are, very, very much in this world, maybe it was a little too much to live up to. But I'm going to grade it as somebody who, saw the movie once in passing, has no recollection of it, and sort of looking at it as kind of a standalone story. But I will say they catch you up pretty well. The first, few minutes, they do kind of the background stuff. But this one is mostly, now Warwick Davis is in it, and I guess maybe a few other people from the movie, but Ellie Bamber is sort of the star here. She plays the future Empress disguised as a maid who, is setting off for her own quest. We've also got Tony Revolori here as Prince Graydon, who is a member on the quest as well. But essentially, six heroes here, including the 2 that I mentioned, are setting off on a dangerous quest to places far beyond their home, where they have to face their own inner demons and come together to save their world. And Warwick Davis does not show up, a little bit of a spoiler, until the very end of the first episode, but then the journey continues on from there. So I had to sort of look up if the first Willow, the movie version, was funny, because this series, especially with the Tony Revolori character and stuff, is doing the jokes. They're doing bits. And I was like, I'm not sure if this is in, keeping in theme with the original movie. And I looked it up, and apparently, yeah, the movie was kind of funny, had a nice sort of tongue-in-cheek humor about it. And I guess that's why it is so beloved, because it was more than just, a fantasy movie. We could really get to know the characters. They seemed a little more human because they had, a sense of humor about themselves and their world and everything like that. And so, you could see why that makes it, sort of a little bit different. Like when not that I've seen much Game of Thrones, but like when I think of Game of Thrones, I don't think it's putting forward the laughs. Whereas, this show has, a pretty sharp wit about it. I will admit that the first episode, I think, does move a little bit slowly for my taste. We don't get to the meat and potatoes until the end of that first episode. I'm also not positive how it's all gonna, blend together as we continue on, with the Willow character. Because for me, like, he was the most memorable part. Like, they showed a few like clips and stuff from the movie and the intro, and I had actually forgotten like Val Kilmer was even in it. I know that was like a huge early role for him, right up there with Top Gun, but I forgot all about that part. Warwick Davis, for me, I guess because he's the title character, he is the face, of this franchise. I am actually surprised that the audience is so low on this. Maybe it's disregarding certain things from the movie or from the lore or whatever. But personally, I kind of enjoyed this show. Like I said, the sense of humor really kind of carries it forward a bit. There are a lot of characters to keep involved with, and that may be a theme in one of our other shows coming up. So maybe it's just as well that we didn't meet Willow until the end of that episode so we could get to know some of those other characters a little bit. And so far, I don't know that I would say there's a ton of action going on, so we might want to pick up the pace a little bit. But overall, I thought this was a pretty enjoyable show. I'm going to leave Willow on Disney Plus with a B+. All right, up next is George and Tammy. This is a miniseries on Showtime. It has not yet wrapped up. They're doing one episode every week, and so I think there's still maybe 2 or 3 left. But this premiered not only on Showtime, but CMT, which makes sense because this is about 2 country music legends, and then also Paramount Network. But Showtime is like the main thing. And it stars Jessica Chastain and Michael Shannon as respectively Tammy Wynette and George Jones, talking about their careers, their love, discovering each other, and everything that comes with it. And some other people you may know, Steve Zahn appears in this, Walton Goggins. But essentially, this is all about, these two. And Chastain already has a Best Actress Golden Globe nomination for her role in this, for Best Actress in a miniseries or TV film. And look, here's the thing, and I talk about this all the time on this channel, not usually on the TV stuff because she's more in movies, but Jessica Chastain is, I think one of our great current actresses. I rank her up there with like Emily Blunt. She can do a lot of things. She can do every sort of genre, and we saw her completely transform into Tammy Faye Baker with The Eyes of Tammy Faye, which she won an Oscar for. Here, I think the transformation is a little bit tougher. Tammy Wynette has a pretty specific voice, and I do think she does well with it, but not as well as she did with Tammy Faye. It's akin to me, and this lady also won an Oscar, but Reese Witherspoon in Walk the Line. Doing June Carter Cash, she didn't quite nail it perfectly, but it was very, very, very good. And I think Chastain has her work cut out for her in this, and she doesn't quite measure up, but I don't think it's her fault. I think I respect her for wanting to do the vocals. And look, I'm not a huge country music fan, so far be it for me to say, the ins and the outs of Tammy Wynette's vocal stylings. But from what I've heard, she doesn't quite nail it. Whereas I think Michael Shannon does a great George Jones, an easier thing to mimic, though, I feel. One of my big problems with this is that George Jones, as a person, as a character, whatever you want to say, is just wholly unlikable. And Michael Shannon acts the hell out of the role. And in fact, the 2 leads really are what keeps this thing afloat from, being a little more soapy or whatever, or run of the mill in terms of a music biopic. They really elevate, I think, the material. They work very well off each other. And I do think that, the vocals for him are great and the vocals from her are very good. One issue, though, is I wonder if this might have been better as a movie. A 2.5-hour biopic like we got with Bohemian Rhapsody, the current Whitney Houston one, Rocket Man, Elton John. That's kind of all the rage now. I'm not sure that we needed many, many parts in a mini-series to have these two. And as a result, we have, some extended versions of like, okay, let's have Tammy record this song, and let's have this person talk about this number. And as a peripheral at best country fan, it just isn't that engaging for me for those details. For people who love country music, and especially, old timey classic country from the 50s and 60s, then, maybe this will be right up your alley. I don't know. But for me, it's all about the performances, and they give them here, very, very vividly. I'm curious to see how Chastain does at the Golden Globes. I can't remember exactly who her competitors are, but I think she gives a very good performance here. Maybe not up with her best, but her and Michael Shannon definitely keep this thing moving. I give George and Tammy a B. All right, next we will go to Netflix for $18.99. This is a German epic mystery sci-fi period piece television series. My God. And it's in a bunch of different languages, which is one of the things I really liked about it. This is a tough one to sort of talk about without giving a lot of spoilers. But I will just say the basic premise, as it says on Wiki, set in 1899, of course, as the title indicates. The series follows a group of European emigrants traveling from Southampton, UK, on a steamship to start lives in New York City. But there's some other things happening with other ships, and that's where the mystery element comes in. There's some time travel stuff and portals and a whole bunch of stuff. And it's funny that it's called 1899 because all of the Yellowstone series are also called like the year, and they're all sort of around this time, because you've got like 1886, you've got 1923. So this has nothing to do with all of that. This has more to do with like your typical kind of Lost ripoff type of thing, or what's the show with the airplane, Manifest. There's a lot of time travel here. There's a lot of mystery elements that we don't quite know what's happening yet. All right, so let's talk about the good of this series first. I think having it be multilingual is important, because it's showcasing people were coming from all over the place, and it makes it a lot more authentic than everybody just talking English or everybody speaking one language. Look, people that were coming to the U.S. in 1899, guess what, everybody? It was a melting pot. We had a lot of different people, a lot of different ethnicities, and I think it's really, really cool that this show has highlighted all of that. But it also leads us into one of the biggest problems of the series is there are way too many characters to follow. There's like, I don't even know how many different families are involved with the different storylines, but too many to bond with, too many to figure out. And I always go back to sort of Lost obviously set the template for a lot of this kind of stuff. And I always go back to how well in the pilot Lost kind of gave us all the different stories, and we learned, of course, the backgrounds as the series went on. But by the end of that pilot, we knew pretty well who these main, let's say, 7 or 8 characters were. And obviously we got to know them more and more as it went on. But then later on in Lost, we met the Tailies, and we met these other people, and and we got background stories on people that maybe were just kind of in the periphery of the episode, of the pilot. Here, it's like they're just shoving 25 people in our faces at once, and we're supposed to care about them and keep track of them as we're trying to keep track of all the crazy plot points. So this show is definitely a mixed bag. I do think it's one of the more interesting shows that we've had in the sci-fi genre this season and this year. When I think about some of the ones I've reviewed that were more middling, some of those were a little too basic. You had maybe 3 main characters and 1 main issue. Okay, but there's got to be a show that can split the difference here. Give us maybe 8 to 10 characters in the first 2 episodes to really sink our teeth into, figure out who they are, what their story is. And maybe just like 2 mysteries going on, not 5. And then you throw in the time travel aspect and the different portals and stuff, and it's like it's like a pinball machine trying to keep everything straight in this show. But that being said, the acting is good, it looks great, and I do think some of the mysteries so far, from as I understand them, are interesting. So this is a series I think that has potential. I don't know if it was renewed already for season 2 or not, but I wouldn't be surprised. Netflix usually jumps on those things right away. And this actually sort of fell through the cracks for me, because this actually premiered. When did this premiere? I don't know. In the middle of November. So, I was doing shows from the middle of November, like 2 weeks ago. So this somehow fell through the cracks for me, but I guess maybe it had appeared in some year-end lists or something, and I was like, okay, let's check this out. So I think it has potential, but I think it's way too cluttered in these first couple episodes to really sink my teeth into what's going on. So I don't know if I'll end up finishing season 1 here, but for now I leave $18.99 with a B-. Could go up definitely from there, but hard to tell from those first couple episodes. All right, next we have Mammals, and this is on Prime Video, and this is a quick watch. I actually watched all 6 episodes of this. This is a British import, starring James Corden, Malia Kraling, Colin Morgan, and Sally Hawkins in the main roles. And Jamie is the James Corden character, and he plays this Michelin star chef whose world is imploding when he discovers some very shocking secrets about his pregnant wife, Amandine, who he's also named his restaurant after, and he hunts for some answers with his brother-in-law, played by Colin Morgan. And this has some sort of fantasy elements too, but more in the capacity of, not in a science fiction way, but just sort of a mental kind of breakdown type of thing. And we have a full episodes where we're in the past when these guys meet. And so this is an interesting show because it definitely doesn't have like an episode template, which is kind of hot lately. You've got shows like Master of None and Atlanta that sort of do full episodes that don't even have to do with the main character at all. And, sometimes it's a flashback and sometimes it's, sort of a fantasy episode or whatever. And we get that here. I think the strongest aspect of this show, believe it or not, I'm shocked that I'm going to say this, is James Corden's performance. I typically do not care for James Corden. I think he is way overdone. And his stupid fat face is so irritating to always see in like every 5th movie I watch. But here he actually plays very, well, I don't want to say against type, because it's not like, his type kind of is the lovable schlub, the nice guy, whatever. I wouldn't say he's the a-hole of this, but I think this is stretching his dramatic chops more than we've seen in a very long time. And I know he's going to give up the Late Show pretty soon. I forget when that is, maybe in the fall or next fall or something, or next spring. But in any event, I would love to see him return to more dramatic acting like this and less of these, just the stupid nonsense acting that he does all the time. I will say I like him as Peter Rabbit, but maybe that's because I don't have to look at him. So there's that. But he's really, really good here, to be honest. As for the show itself, I think it's a little too all over the place. In just 6 episodes, we really kind of get a whiplash of these characters, and I can appreciate that we want to see them at a better place, and we see the flashback where they meet and the courtship and all of that. But I'm not sure at the end of the day that even matters. Like, we get it. A bunch of stuff went down in the present, so he's trying to find answers. So he's like looking to the past, but I don't know that we need to take that particular journey with him. But it does give it something a little bit different. It's a less sort of linear storyline in that regard. So I didn't hate it. I sort of have some mixed feelings about it. And then in the first episode, Tom Jones appears as himself, as their neighbor. That was sort of very off. That didn't work for me. It just seemed like stunt casting. So that was sort of weird. And they tried to make it a minor plot point in the first episode, but then they never go back to it in the other 5. So, and this can't be a ongoing series, right? This is, I would say, a mini series, because it certainly does wrap up, but it doesn't necessarily say that. It calls it a streaming television series, not a mini series. So I don't know. I don't know that we need more seasons of Mammals, to be honest, but continuing the trend, we've gone from B+ to B to B-. I leave Mammals with a C+. going down that hole here. All right, so let's see if these next two can maybe lift it a little bit. Let's go to Mood, which is on AMC Plus, but this is a BBC Three import. These last few are all imports, and this one again is 6 episodes, but it is, I believe, coming back for a second season. Or at least it's not designed as a one-season show. But it was based on a one-woman play called Superho, which was created and written by Nicole Lecky, and that is who stars in this show as well. So she plays Sasha Clayton, who is an aspiring musician and rapper. And we have, some social media friends in the mix. And, look, this is a story that we've seen a lot lately in both television and film. The aspiring singer, actor, dancer, whatever it is, and trying to get their foot in the door of social media and using that to sort of make a name for themselves while sort of navigating, the waters of dating and all of this other stuff. I think Issa Rae's Insecure is probably the modern template for that. And this certainly fails to kind of capture some of that magic. But I will say that the lead here, like I said, her name is Nicole Lecky, or Likey, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but she's really, really good here. And, I assume these are her own songs that she's written since it's from her one-woman show. But there's a lot of original music in this that the character is singing and performing. And I don't know that any of the songs like totally blew me away, but I think they were good enough to, okay, let's pause the storyline for 3 minutes and listen to this song, kind of thing, because she's an aspiring musician. So, okay, let's kind of hear that. I didn't think of it as a let's be lazy and not write 3 minutes of this script so we can see her perform for 3 minutes. I didn't think it was like that. And because this day and age, if you're not on a broadcast network, you're not beholden to a 30-minute runtime. You can kind of play with time a little bit in that regard. But it was originally on the BBC, which is, sort of a network, a broadcast network. So I do think these are all sort of within like a 27, 28-minute, time frame. But the songs were so good that it didn't really pull me out of the story. It sort of involved the story a little bit. It was an interesting watch. I did not watch all 6 episodes of this. I only watched the first 2 like I usually do. But I was getting major Insecure vibes, really throughout this. And like I said, that is kind of the gold standard, I think, of that sort of genre. But I didn't think they were necessarily using the social media angle as like a crutch. It seemed natural here, where I think in some shows it does not. But I'm curious actually more about how the one-woman show was, because I could totally see it panning out that way, because everybody kind of comes in and out of her life surreptitiously, but she is in every scene of this show, I think. So that makes sense too. I thought this was a good watch, not great, but definitely bucks the trend of us going down on the grades. I leave Mood with a B. All right, and we will close with Irreverent, which is originally from Australia, but now it is on Peacock, and this is straight-up miniseries. There's not going to be a second season of this, but this follows the story of an American criminal who messes up a heist and is forced to hide out in an Australian small reef town, posing as the new church minister, and it stars Colin Donnell as Paolo, and a few other people who I sort of recognize, but I didn't really know who they were, but PJ Byrne is one of them. He was in The Wolf of Wall Street. He was Rugrat in that show, and he's done some voice work and stuff, so I kind of recognized him. And then Ed Oxenbould, who was the little boy in Alexander and the No Good Day, he's grown up now, and he has a minor role here as well, so I vaguely recognize him, but when I saw his name, I was like, oh, that's that little kid from Alexander. But anyway, it's interesting that Peacock grabbed this show, because we just like 2 weeks ago did a show on Peacock that I think was also an import. I'm not positive on that one, but Carla Gugino was in it, and it was about these people who bungled a heist and now have to, hang loose and lay low in this, island kind of town or whatever. So it's like, this, I think, has more meat to it than that. I think the characters are more well defined. The dialogue is better. But it's interesting that Peacock took two series with a very similar premise and put them on the air, within a few weeks of each other. It's very odd. But yeah, I think in most respects, this is a better show than that. I really like this character of, what's his name, Paolo. The whole sort of suave, yeah, I'm going to be the pastor, but with the seedy sort of background. And this is one of those shows where it's a quirky town. We've got a lot of quirky townspeople that we can sort of, joke with and laugh at, and that are all sort of part of the mix. And everybody's got, their own thing, their own quirky thing. So it's one of those shows, but not in the sense, it's not like a zany show, but, everybody's got their little, thing about them that makes them unique in this town. And it sort of all plays off of Paolo and how he interacts with them. So I think the dialogue is written better than the show with Carla Gugino. I think the acting for the most part is better. And, because it's on this little small island town off of Queensland, like it's gorgeous to look at. Nice, sort of, I don't want to say cinematography necessarily, because not that, but sort of the backdrop is beautiful and lovely. And, it's not necessarily cinematic, but for a TV show, it's sort of like when you're watching Magnum PI or Hawaii Five-0 or something with, the beautiful ocean in the background and that sort of thing. So it's definitely nice to look at as well in that regard. But yeah, this is kind of middle of the road for me, but definitely better than the one I reviewed a couple of weeks ago on Peacock. So I leave Irreverent with a B-. All right, so that'll do it. No flat out bad shows this week. No amazing shows either. Everything kind of, above average a little bit with varying degrees. So yeah, I think we have maybe at least two more regular TV news and reviews, and then we will get to the best of the year. I'll try to do that before we get too far into 2023. So look for that. And in the meantime, catching up on all my movies as well. So I'm going to really be stockpiling on the movie reviews if you're into that stuff on my channel as well over these next couple of months until the Oscars in mid-March. So, all right, thank you for watching. We'll see everybody next time on Dan Reviews It. Bye.